Welcome back for episode 4 of ECW on FX, and I actually forgot to check what TNA did before I booked my show this week, so while it will be on screen, I have no idea what we're up against. Regardless of what Impact did, we have to hope that we can put on another good show on FX. Last week it only got a 60, the minimum requirement for our network is 62, so that's the main thing we need to focus on this week, getting our own house in order before we can focus on gaining any more ground on TNA. With that said, I do think we've got a good show put together. The main event might be a bit of a risk. We've got Brent Albright v Rhino for the ECW World Television Championship. Hopefully that match can deliver and some of the angles can bump us up, because we really can't afford to be kicked off FX, especially this soon into the run. And the episode begins with something we advertised last week, Steve Corino making his entrance as the commentators recap that scenario for us. CM Punk was jumped during an interview by Steve Corino and Paul Burchill, causing him to be replaced in the main event by Tommy Dreamer. Corino then cuts a promo whilst in the ring, reminding viewers about what happened to his sister Alison Danger at Guilty as Charged. He says that the rest of his family blame him for what happened to Alison. They've said that he's the one who got her involved in that disgusting business of pro wrestling, and he has been ostracised from family gatherings ever since that night. Steve Corino says that he knows there is only one man to blame. That man is CM Punk. CM Punk comes out to answer this claim, but as he walks down the ramp, he is jumped by Corino's right-hand man, Paul Burchill. Joey Styles calls out this obvious setup as Burchill tears Punk's shirt off, revealing his ribs to be taped up. That has been aggravated during the assault last week and has been a long-term issue for CM Punk ever since he was feuding with Rhino, who continually hit him with gauze. Burchill drags Punk back to his feet with his arms around those ribs before dropping him on the ramp with a gut-wrench powerbomb, which causes Punk a severe amount of pain. The commentators initially questioned why nobody has come out to help CM Punk until they hear of an incident going down in the back that appears to have drawn attention away from the ring. Steve Corino improvising well in this segment. Again, that note about CM Punk, so definitely this storyline is something that may see him change a little bit as a character, so hopefully we can find the right gimmick to change him to and that can get a good rating. But Corino's crusade against Punk continues, a strong start to the show and getting the crowd hotter, and we go into another segment, this time in the back. Tommy Dreamer and Rob Van Dam are seen to be engaging in a brawl with Jerry Lynn and Rhino. It's unclear when or how the fight started, but other members of the roster are seen to be encouraging the violence and there is no end in sight. One member of the roster not interested in the brawl is Xavier, who walks past the scene, giving only a single glance towards it as he heads out to the ring. He's in the opening match. We've got the brawl between them two, a continuing storyline in the world title scene. But we also want to put over that Xavier is focused and determined. He's only looking at his match next. He's not interested in all the backstage shenanigans. He has his eyes on the World Tag Team titles. That opening match is a good rating, Xavier with a 62. I'm finding with Xavier he has to be put in the right situation. When he was in that match with Homicide, which was a hardcore based match, he did terribly. I've put him in like wild brawl type matches and stuff and he really doesn't rate that well. But when I put him in like Steal the Show or storytelling, he does do a lot better. A 62 is a really good performance, putting him towards the upper end of the roster. Rocky Romero seeming off his game, or else it could have been an even better match. A C-55 is decent, and the finish sees Xavier, he has Rocky Romero in that crossface, the submission that we're trying to get over, but Sonny Siaki comes out from the back. He's been told by Homicide that he has to take Xavier out, and he tries to do that. Instead, he just distracts the referee. Rocky Romero is seen to visibly tap out on the canvas, but the referee of course can't see it. Xavier then releases the hold to take out Siaki and to get the referee's attention back on him, but in doing that, he turns round and Rocky Romero can hit him with a running knee strike and pick up the victory. It's a defeat for Xavier, but we did keep him strong. Again, another reason why the match could have been better. We kept Xavier strong in defeat. I think if we had a match between Rocky Romero and Xavier that didn't have any outside involvement, that didn't have him being kept strong, and if Rocky Romero was on his game, these two could have an excellent match, a main event level match, that's for certain. After the match, Rocky Romero leaves the ring, joining Sonny Siaki on the outside, while Siaki has more damage in mind. Low-Ki comes down with the ringside ban now lifted. Both Ricky Reyes and Low-Ki, the partners of the two men involved, had been banned for the match, and he confronted Siaki and Rocky Romero. Ricky Reyes was out soon after, pushing Low-Ki away and leading his Hustle teammates to the back. They'd got the win, they didn't need to be involved in anything else. Ki then joined Xavier in the ring, the number one contenders staring down the tag team champions, but they have been brought down back to earth slightly. Despite Xavier making Rocky Romero tap out in the middle of the ring, he was defeated in the opening match of tonight's show. Following that interaction, the show headed to the back as the timely entrance of Homicide to the building was shown, the first time he'd been seen since he was hurt in his match with Low-Ki at Guilty as Charged. The commentators wondered what he had in mind for tonight, having issued an ultimatum to Sonny Siaki last week. He tests the muscle of the hustle with taking Xavier out of commission permanently. That had of course started earlier tonight, but he didn't get the job done. Elsewhere in the back, we see the interview area, Brent Albright joining Jade, promoting the main event. During the week, Rhino issued a challenge to the ECW locker room, calling on anybody to step up to be the next challenger to the dual champions ECW TV title. Brent Albright put his name forward, and the match was made by Paul Heyman. Joined by his partner Chad Collyer, he explains that he understands the size of the task that faces him tonight, saying that while they fell short of becoming the World Tag Team Champions at Guilty as Charged, he knows he has it in him to become a champion, and he can go one better tonight. He can't think of any better way to mark his in-ring debut on ECW on FX than leaving as the TV champion. We then get a match with the Hart Foundation picking up another dominant decisive victory. They face three men in black masks and black tights. It's actually the Basham brothers whose contracts are running out, so I'm just using them as if they were local talents, and Danny Doring, who we've hired on a one night only deal. It's a 4-minute 52 match and a mayhem match, so just supposed to be about quick perpetual motion moves from the new Hart Foundation, showing that they are faster, they are younger, and they are fresher than anybody else on the roster. It says that the overbooking didn't sit well with the crowd, but actually it seems to have protected everybody because they've all got decent ratings. TJ Wilson and Harry Smith getting better ratings than they usually do, that's for certain, and it got the crowd buzzing. So despite that note criticising it, I do think that was a good match for the new Hart Foundation to be involved in and will continue their momentum. They stand tall, celebrating another strong decisive victory, continuing their impressive debuts in ECW. The commentators put over the young talent arriving and thriving in ECW, which leads nicely into the following segment. Footage airs that recaps Nigel McGuinness's in-ring debut last week as he picked up a convincing victory over Chad Collyer. Out of that footage, William Regal spoke to an interviewer, this time promoting Bryan Danielson's in-ring debut, which will take place next week. Regal adds that last week was just a preview of what Nigel is capable of, and said that it was only a matter of time before these two men were recognised for exactly what they are. Nigel showed his toughness last week, and next week Bryan Danielson will introduce both the ECW fans and his opponent to holds that they have never seen before. Regal superb working without a script, and that is a very good segment, continuing to build up these two newcomers to the roster. We then go back into the ballroom with Paul Heyman making his way down to the ring, the first time we've seen him in the ring since ECW came to FX, and he took time to ask the fans how they've been enjoying the action since the show debuted. Heyman explained that it was great to be out here, but he didn't expect it to be a regular thing. Paul Heyman would only come out when he had something important to say, and rest assured, he has something important to say tonight. Paul Heyman then announced ECW's next pay-per-view, Living Dangerously, which would take place 4 weeks from this Sunday. That's not all, of course, as any big pay-per-view needs a worthy main event, and he has just that. He confirms that at Living Dangerously, Rob Van Dam would get his chance to regain the ECW World Championship in a blockbuster match against Rhino. Paul Heyman improvising well throughout the segment, albeit not one of his best promos that he's ever done. The commentary helped us, and the crowd getting hotter before the main event is a very good thing. I'm doing a pay-per-view just 8 weeks after the previous show, Guilty as Charged. That is a bit sooner than I usually like to do it. I've been trying to do it every 3 months, so we have 4 pay-per-views a year. But with us coming on FX, the idea that we have now more viewers watching the show than ever before, it's ideal to me to strike while the iron is hot and have a pay-per-view just 8 weeks into that run, hopefully keeping the buzz alive and getting a very good buy rate for that pay-per-view. Coming back for the final quarter hour of the show, the Hustle locker room saw Homicide talk to his depleted ranks with a message to Sonny Siaki made clear once again. Living Dangerously would likely be the night that Low-Ki and Xavier were scheduled to get their shot at the ECW World Tag Team titles, and Siaki's job was to make sure that Xavier was taken out before then. Rocky chimed in and said that the Havana Pitbulls had it covered, they wouldn't lose to those two snakes again, but Homicide completely blanked him. He's acting a bit like a dictator recently, and to prove that he is serious, Homicide tells Siaki, if Xavier makes it as far as Living Dangerously, then you won't. This was rated on Rocky Romero and Homicide, both off script. Romero clearly enjoyed the freedom, and it is a really good segment. Hustle segments have historically been really bad rated, but having Romero and Homicide both rated on their entertainment skills seems to have done the trick. Before the main event, Rhino looks to be in a terrible mood as he makes his entrance, and this is confirmed as Jerry Lynn delays the beginning of the match, cutting a promo to explain why. Lynn said that Rhino wasn't happy about these people having found out the main event of Living Dangerously at the same time as he did, and Brent was going to take the brunt of those frustrations. On the other side of the ring, Brent tapped his wrist, indicating that Lynn was wasting everybody's time. Rhino took the microphone from Lynn, snatching it from his hands, saying this won't take long, before throwing it to the ground and telling the referee to ring the bell. So it's not a great segment, both of them struggling when going off script. It was only a short promo, so I can't see how it could have been that bad. Not the best way to go into the main event, which is a 55 C-. A 67 is a good performance from Rhino, okay from Brent Albright. I do think with the angles we've had, we will be above that 62 requirement, but this was an extremely short match. Rhino backing up his words, he was furious and he wanted to make an example of somebody in 1 minute and 36. Absolute domination from the opening bell. A disappointing night for Brent Albright. It's not done to bury him or anything like that. He will come back and it will play into his story, but the idea is that Rhino is so pissed off that he just runs right through Brent Albright, making the 4th defense of the ECW World Television Championship. An excellent, dominant performance for him, and having ran through his opponent in that dominant fashion, Rhino's singles debut, the first match he's had on ECW on FX, so this is the first singles match a lot of people will have ever seen him have. Imagine how much of a dominant monster he looks there. It's a short-lived match, but his night is not over there. Rob Van Dam came out to confront his Living Dangerously opponent, with Rhino sending Jerry Lynn to meet him on the ramp. Van Dam and Lynn brawled briefly, with Rob getting the better of his historical rival, throwing Jerry Lynn to one side. RVD stood at the bottom of the ramp, pointing to the ECW World Championship that Rhino held. He indicated that the title would be coming back around his waist at ECW Living Dangerously 2007 as ECW on FX went off the air. So it's a 63 C rating, just eking out that minimum requirement, and I thought it was a decent show. I think that if TNA have done a great show like they did last week, that 69 C+ has really raised the bar. It's changed how I see the shows. I'd previously have been very happy with a C63, anything above that minimum requirement, but knowing now that TNA can pull out a show like that, it has raised the stakes a bit, and I'm feeling like maybe I think we've got just as good a roster as them, so there's no reason why we can't be pulling out shows like that. We have, however, convincingly beaten this week. Brother Ray v Kevin Nash ended in a DQ, and Elite Skipper v Gerald Clark. Sometimes it looks like they're not even trying, doesn't it? But they get a 1.195 viewership on their ratings. We get a 1.596, so we're considerably ahead of them in the TV ratings again. They had more people through the gate. I think that's the first time that that's happened, but I'm happy overall that we have once again picked up a victory, 4 straight wins in the TV ratings, and again, this is looking like a very one-sided war.